sorry that we don't have, I'm sorry to see folks are out in the hallway. We will accommodate everyone. If everyone has been signed up on the bills, we will take you. There's other committees are meeting in other rooms, and we have this room this evening. So that's how it goes here. But the first thing we are going to do is I want to introduce to the committee. We have a new committee member. We have Senator Collins. I can't believe this, that I introduced Senator Washington instead of first the esteemed chairman of Health and Human Services. Senator Miller is also a member of the committee as well. And then I also want to introduce, we have two new staff people that will be with our committee this year. We have April Collins, who is the new secretary. Pat Preston. We are in great shape. We have a great committee. We've got some great issues this evening we're going to go over. We're going to have a presentation first of progress that the EC board has been making. I'm looking for my notes. And then after that, we will go on to the bills. It will be the overview of the Rhode Island Executive Climate Change Coordinating Council, EC4 as we know it, the Greenhouse Gas Emission Reduction Plan. Is Director Coit here? Okay. We have a baby to go out with Director Coit. Okay, all right. Okay, we were too prompt, I guess, Aaron.
Exactly. That was perfect. I can do a quick introduction whenever you're ready.
Please, I just was looking at the agenda. Director Coit was on first, but you're on second, or however you...
While she's coming, I'll do a little bit of an introduction. Thank you very much for allowing us to be here today. I'm a member of the EC4. Janet is the chair of the EC4, so she'll be walking through the preliminary portions of this. But I did want to, since we're gathered and since the report creates some sense of urgency around action on greenhouse gas emissions, I did want to underscore that earlier today the governor did put a marker down for us to all work toward on 1,000 megawatts of clean energy, which is going to be a significant effort that OER and other members of the energy team will be working towards. I'll be glad to answer any questions on that. I just wanted you all to know that I think it's a really good next step for us to be taking action toward the issues that were raised here. And Janet will kick it off, and then the bulk of the conversation will also be covered by Dan Musher, who is on the staff of the Office of Energy Resources and who is a lead on this study. We can probably, hey Danny, is she here? Because if not, we're going to start. All right. Why don't we go ahead and Danny, do you know? Great.
All right, Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for having me here today. I'm sure Janet will arrive momentarily and she'll interject, but in the meantime, we undertook this study at the behest of the General Assembly to look at meeting greenhouse gas emissions reductions for Rhode Island. Obviously, Rhode Island is a coastal state, vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, and we're seeing that today. And Janet, would you like to...
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you guys got started.
We'll jump right in.
Back.
You always agree for an entrance. Commissioner Grant was kind enough, she saw we were all gathered here, so that she would start off, and then Danny was but
well, let me just take it for a few slides and I'll hand it back to Danny. So,
welcome.
hello, Madam Chair and members of the committee. So I assume Danny already thanked you all for your leadership in enacting the Resilient Rhode Island Act. And I feel like it's even more important now that we take action at a local level. In addressing climate change, we really need to act at a global, a national, a regional, and a state level. So you guys really got us going on the state level. So did you just start the slide? I just wanted to I just wanted to remind everyone, and I think you're well aware, which is why you stepped up and enacted this bill, that climate change is here. It's pervasive in terms of all the issues that we address at DEM and that people address at DOT or Department of Health, which is why you had us convene so many different agency heads on the Executive Climate Change Coordinating Council. So these are just a few. I won't read them, but we're seeing warmer temperatures. We've already seen 10 inches of sea level rise in the last 70 years. We're getting 10 inches more of rain a year. Our infrastructure is not designed for that much rain. That's why we're seeing flooding, degradation of water quality. And the temperatures have increased in Narragansett Bay. If you go to the next slide, and we really see that at DEM in terms of changes in our fisheries. So whether it's homes on the coast, bridges and highways, wastewater treatment facilities that are getting inundated in rainstorms, or as we're seeing at our fishing ports, really different complement of species. We're seeing more mid-Atlantic species that are used to warmer water coming and being in Rhode Island at commercial volume. Next. So I wanted to just start by reminding everybody the impacts here of climate change. You enacted the Resilient Rhode Island Act in 2014, but this committee really took leadership on that, and you asked all of the state agencies to get together and make sure that we integrated and aligned the work that we were doing around climate change. So I think it's been tremendously important and effective. One of the things that we did recently was we added the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank and the Department of Public Utilities and Carriers to our EC4 group, among the other agencies, which are the EMA and the CRMC and DOT and Health, etc., and obviously energy and planning. So under the Act, there were a few hard deadlines, and one was that we were, next slide, we were to create a state-level greenhouse gas reduction strategy. So we had talked quite a bit about work we've done at the regional level, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. We were happy to see the administration join the agreement in Paris and commit to reductions of 26 to 28% by 2025 from 2005 levels as part of a big global effort. You wanted us to look at what we could do at a state level. So these are the goals for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Plan under the Resilient Rhode Island Act. And we were to send you a report by December 31st, a deadline we met, that gave some recommendations on strategies and policies that the state could take to meet these targets. So just want to point out, and Danny will get into more detail, that there are 3 targets under the Act, and you see the red lines that represent those targets. We are on track to meet the 2020 target. So that's really the good news. And that speaks to a lot of the work you've done on promoting renewable energy, creating a landscape where we can promote energy efficiency, the work that the governor's led in terms of leading by example at a state level. So I think we've done a lot of the smart things that were in our grasp so that we can hit that target. So that's good news. The more difficult aspects of this plan, and what we've really done is teed up a whole number of areas where a lot of much more bold action would need to be taken in order to meet the targets in 2035 and 2050. And I'll let Danny get into the specifics on that. But it really means that we need to go back to you, we need to go back to the governor and say, particularly in the non-electric generating sector, where in that sector we've done a lot of good work at the local and the state level, more to do, but in the transportation sector and in the heating sector, a lot of work remains to be done. And there's so much that we can seize at a state level, we want to seize that, but it does require regional action, and it requires bold action. So, good news, we're in a good trajectory now, and we have a big opportunity to be bold and innovative in order to meet these targets. I'll turn it over, Carol, you already spoke about the exciting announcement earlier today. And then I'll turn it over to Danny, who really led a team that was DEM, the Office of Energy Resources, DOT, and state planning, that worked very closely with our consultant to try to put forward really a framework for making some decisions moving forward. So I'll turn it over to Danny. I'll be available for questions.
Thank you, Director. Thank you for your leadership on this.
I really think the council's been very, very important.
It's just, it's so exciting to see the agencies all working together. A lot of the work they were working on anyway, that was a collaborative effort and moving forward, it's just really exciting. I hope the other states can kind of watch what we're doing here with all these agencies working collaboratively. It's success. Anyway,
I
thank you.
think so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
So I think collaborative effort is a really good way to describe how we were able to develop this plan. The effort took place over the course of the last year, informed by technical analysis. We brought on a contractor, we involved a technical committee of subject matter experts, and ultimately produced a document that I think provides, as Director Coit mentioned, a framework for an ongoing discussion about where the important opportunities that we can take advantage of to achieve our goals. So we have now real data, I think for the first time in Rhode Island, about what are those pathways that we can use with commercially available technology today to address our greenhouse gas emissions in Rhode Island and meet our goals. And then furthermore, what are some of the main policy areas that we can use to implement those strategies. Major takeaways of the plan, I think, again, covered by Director Coit, but want to emphasize that climate change, certainly a challenge for us as a coastal state, but a major opportunity for benefits. What we really found through the modeling is that there are technically viable ways to meet these targets, and in the near term, we're actually poised to exceed our 2020 target, but in the long term, if we're going to meet those deep cuts in greenhouse gas emissions, it would mean really a fundamental change in the way that we consume and produce energy, not only in Rhode Island, but regionally. So our energy economy is certainly not confined to our single state here. And then finally, as we mentioned, this is it's a broad discussion, it's a very complex discussion. This is a departure for ongoing conversation, so we certainly did not intend to come up with a prescriptive list of policies between now and 2050 that we're going to implement, but we can highlight some of the areas of opportunity, and that's what we did. A snapshot of where we are today in Rhode Island. Total emissions are estimated at about 11 million tons CO2. To put that in perspective on how Rhode Island compares to other states, we do have one of the lower per capita CO2 emissions compared to other states. The Northeast does actually in general have a lower per capita emissions. But the takeaway from this slide is that 40% of our emissions are in transportation, so big area of opportunity that we need to address, followed by electricity consumption, and then building energy usage, which is primarily space and water heating. The reason that we see so many emissions in the transportation sector is because this is the most petroleum-dependent sector in Rhode Island. We use a lot of natural gas, which has less emissions for electricity and for heating. But gasoline and diesel, all carbon-emitting, higher carbon-emitting resources. What would it look like going in the future if we have the existing policy framework in place? We have a great leadership in the General Assembly, a progressive set of policies. We're looking to exceed that 2020 target. And these horizontal bars going out from today to 2050 are showing you those same slices you saw before, transportation, electricity, and then the different building sectors. So if we're trying to get below our 1990 emissions here, and we look at our 2035 and 2050 targets, still a long way to go, right? So it gives us a sense for how challenging those targets will be ultimately. And then there's some high-level drivers of what would be causing those trends, which I won't get into right now. How do we get from here to there? I know there's a lot of small type on this slide, but I'll just highlight a few things. We did find a pathway. Here's the business as usual. We did find a pathway to those targets. So we found, and looking at our mitigation options, our greenhouse gas and clean energy options, we can make it there. The take-home message, though, is that we need all of the options, and we need them at very aggressive levels. So this chart is just giving you a flavor for what are the levels in 2035 and 2050 that we would need from different resources like energy efficiency, clean and renewable energy, reductions in vehicle miles traveled, high-efficiency electric vehicles, biofuels. And what you'll see is that going out to 2050, reaching those goals would require a nearly carbon-free regional grid, and upwards of 70–80% electrification of our vehicles, our heating, maximum penetration of available biofuels. It's assuming a reduction in vehicle miles traveled. New sources of clean energy from our neighboring provinces. So, an all of the above kitchen sink strategy to get to those targets. As I just mentioned, the pathways again, electrifying using high efficiency technologies for heating our buildings and powering our transportations, supplied by an increasingly renewable electric grid. One thing I do want to mention is this idea of stock turnover. So when we're trying to meet our long-term targets, people are buying vehicles today that they keep for 20 years. So part of our goal is to get these markets moving over time so that by 2040, most people are buying electric vehicles because they'll be on the road in 2050. Biofuels, uncertain of the future supply, and then new technologies may play an important role.
You mentioned in the earlier graph that biodiesel makes up over 40% of the use of energy, and so can you be a little more specific on, I noticed on the prior slide, it said that it seemed like a constant between the two for biodiesel, no change. Can you amplify on the largest area of the graph, what specifically is projected to change the usage in the biodiesel market?
So for biodiesel, there's a lot of current usage of biodiesel fuel. Well, there's a lot of current usage of heating oil and diesel and transportation. And there's a lot of uncertainty around how much biodiesel we'll be able to get for Rhode Island in the future, and how much over the life cycle those resources will reduce their carbon. So we assumed the maximum amount that we could get and directed it all to transportation, because for large heavy-duty trucks that run on diesel, there weren't other options for a carbon-free resource for them. But it used up literally all of the biodiesel supply that we projected or assumed in here, and left none left for heating in this particular scenario, because there's a limitation on how much biodiesel there will be able to be produced in the future. Does that answer your question?
It does. I think the alternative sources of energy that are going to come in from renewable sources of energy are going to offset that. I'm just trying to follow this.
Yeah, so
I don't understand a little bit better.
So there's different options here that we can use to supply different energy needs. And what I didn't show is where these different resources are being used in our energy economy. So renewable energy, this is for electricity. For heating, we have two major options, which would be electric heat supplied by renewable energy on the grid, or biodiesel. Same for transportation. It could be electric transportation or biodiesel transportation. So we just looked at what is the total amount of, that we could provide there, and we modeled it. I can certainly answer more questions after.
Thank you.
Just a couple more slides for all of you. For policy and implementation, the statute required us to look at policies, strategies, and actions for greenhouse gas mitigation. What we did was try to outline some of the high-level opportunities to build on our existing success in Rhode Island, and then pursue future opportunities, both in-state and through regional collaborations to meet our goals. So, building on state success, if the report has been circulated to members of the committee, we can certainly make sure it's been circulated, but what we include in there is for each mitigation option that you saw on that previous slide, for renewable energy, energy efficiency, we looked at what are the existing policies that Rhode Island has. We have very successful energy efficiency programs, very successful renewable. We have biodiesel blend requirements that have been passed. Based on the modeling, what would be some future improvements or changes to those existing proven laws that would be needed to meet those long-term targets. So There's the option to build on our suite of existing policies in the future. Furthermore, a lot of these, in order to achieve success, we need to influence individual consumer purchase decisions. Someone's going to replace the heating system in their home. They need to have a technology that's clean, affordable, and that they can trust. They need to be able to have access to the financing to put it in. They need to understand what it is. They need to have a contractor base that's trained and able to install these new resources and be able to explain to the consumer what the benefit is. We need to have a utility on board who has their interests aligned with integrating and increasing renewable energy. So this is really, I think, a category that talks about a lot of good work that's already underway to reduce barriers to consumer adoption of renewable energy. And then finally, collaborating with our neighbors is key. In the past, Rhode Island has very successfully collaborated with our neighbors through the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. We have ongoing work through the Transportation and Climate Initiative, through the New England Governors Eastern Canadian Premiers. We can't meet our goals unless we're working with our neighboring states. Our renewable energy, our electricity goals are going to require us to have an overall clean grid in the region. So it's really key for us to work collaboratively with our neighbors. Emphasize that. And then finally, as required by the statute, we do have in place a process to monitor progress towards our goals. DEM is doing a triennial inventory of our greenhouse gas emissions, and we've developed a schedule that we can track to see that we're on pace to meet the goals. So just want to conclude with mentioning that EC4 is really energized to move from these planning conversations into implementation. We've just had the announcement today of 1,000 megawatts clean energy by 2020. We're in the process at OER with our partners and other state agencies and stakeholders to develop our next 3-year energy efficiency plan, where we hope to move the ball forward on many of these gaps and underserved sectors. And we're in full swing working to develop a new regulatory framework for utilities to bring them on as full requirements. And this is not a complete list, but there's certainly action now. And then legislative efforts this session, including moving the ball forward on electric vehicles, expanding the use of RGGI funds so that we can address that thermal and transportation block, which is so important, and expansion of the 400 megawatt expansion of the renewable energy program. So with that, I'll conclude and be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. This is just so exciting. I can remember before this began. Here we are today. I mean, I'm just absolutely so excited about the work that you've done in collaboration. I did have just one small question. When you talked about the regional effort, how big is this region? Is it the 3-state region, or is it all of New England, or the Northeast, or?
So certainly New England. We have, for our electric grid, it's integrated throughout New England. So, but I think that beyond our region as well.
The regional greenhouse gas pollution is in 9 states, so all the New England states, New York, as well as Maryland and Delaware. And that successful regional compact will achieve a 50% reduction from electric generating units by 2020. So it's an example of, it's bigger than our ISO, bigger than our New England grid, but working together, we really have a bigger impact. The Transportation and Climate Initiative that we're part of, that's looking at the transportation sector, that includes the states down the Atlantic seaboard, also through Virginia and Maryland. And then the governor just became the head of CONE, which is all of New England and New York. So that's a group of governors that work together looking at transportation and energy and economic issues. So it's a number of different regional. And we can't forget national too. I know that wasn't the question, but when you look at low carbon fuel standards or appropriate average fuel economy, some of these things that really can make impact, say in the transportation sectors and efficiency standards, those are often national policies.
Thank you.
So a question I had going through the report, and you mentioned tonight that it looks like it's going to be harder to reach those longer term goals. So my question is, I noticed when reading the report that it talked about the modeling that was done was based on data from 2015 or so. Did that include information about the Clear River plant and what the effect is on reaching those goals with this new energy plant coming in?
I'll let you take that.
So the proposed Clear River plan is included in the business as usual forecast, and it's accounted for in the modeling. So for what I didn't get into, because it can get wonky pretty fast, or complex pretty fast, is that there's several different ways of accounting for our electricity consumption. This did not consider the power that we produce in state. It considered the electricity that we consume in state. That's for several reasons, not the least of which is because most of the tools at our disposal in the state that we have available are to affect electricity consumption, not electricity production.
So it included information about the deforestation as well as the CO2 equivalents that are going into the air?
Yes. Yeah.
Is there any way to know what those numbers would be without that? And being there just to know what kind of impact it had by putting it into?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but we could look into it and certainly find that information.
That'd be great, thank you.
Yeah.
Just one point that I think Danny made that bears emphasis, and I know it's something that Governor Raimondo was really thought a lot about, was even when we started RGGI, the modeling was always about the information we had. So it showed that emissions were going to go up quite a bit more than they did because certain things happened with the economy or whatever ways of producing energy that we didn't predict. So it was very hard when we got all the way out to 2050. We did the best with the information we had, but really thinking about what would the government keep saying was drive those innovative technologies. Let's be on the front end, but what will be available 30 some odd years from now. So we feel like we did the best we can, as you always do with modeling, but that we're hopeful that new technologies will come on board and that will be driving those that will make it easier to achieve those.
Well, if it's any inclination of what the legislature is committee working with agencies have done, making those barriers down to more goals. Go. Any other questions? Comments? Because we all know that we have a champion of electric vehicles now on the committee. There's just a proponent for electric vehicles for I don't know how long, for tax incentives and so forth. So thank you. Thank you very much.
We really want to thank you. Obviously, are available to answer any questions on either the plan or what we are doing to address it as we go forward, including how we're thinking about this clean energy bold goal and how we drive that so that we can accelerate with the technologies we have today, even though we know that we'll need more than that to get to the 2050 goals. And finally, just wanted to let Tiffany know, Janet and I have provided a comment on one of the bills that will be considered tonight in writing, and we commend the sponsors of those bills for thinking about and really continuing to focus everyone's attention on the importance of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We hope that we will find some bold ways regionally that we can do that. But those comments will be recorded. We're glad to be questions on that as well. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. For the new senator, I know we have a new member, two members, but the new senator, it really, I've been up here long enough that I can remember just talking about these issues. It was really far in the future, but we have come so far with our leadership in the Senate and in the House and committee members to innovative piece of legislation you have for the economy will come a long way. So I know that you're excited and you want to go even faster than we're doing, but just to let you know we're working on it.
And one final thing that I would offer from the event earlier today, I was introduced to someone who is new to Rhode Island and coming into the state, who said, please pass along to policymakers that I work all over the country and I'm coming here for a reason because the foundation that's been put in place here, the policies, the laws are very attractive, very smart, and very encouraging for people who want to invest. So you get a lot of credit for that.
Great.
We want jobs.
We want
Totally focused on
great
that.
opportunities right now. We are, what's happening in our country. We have great opportunities here in Rhode Island and Northeast. I won't say anything further than that. So, if there's not any other questions for Director Coy, Commissioner, or Richard, or James? Thank you. Great job. Keep up the good work. Keep us posted. We'll be watching. Encouraging. Okay, very good. So, with that, we'll move on to bills. They're all scheduled for hearing this evening. Senator Miller, I wanted to take yours up. I know it's just extending the time. What we will do on that, you can speak to the bill. I would plan on reposting that for next week, so we can take a vote on it. But if you'd like to speak now, or
Just for those who aren't familiar with it, for several years in a row, there have been interest in the communities that have duck hunting directly on their water lines, whether it be Cranston or Barrington or other communities where there's been major transitions over the last few decades, and especially in population density since these duck hunting regulations were first put in. So to give an example, in my community, Cranston, which has gotten a lot of feedback from residents, that when the regulations were put in, there was a lot less people living along the water. Same thing as in Barrington. That's probably the second community that we got a lot of feedback from as these issues have been up. And so the challenge to look at this in a fair and balanced way was to immediately look at how long it's been since these regulations had been looked at. And it has been almost 30 years since these regulations were looked at. So what we came up with last year was that there be a commission appointed by the Senate President to look at these laws and bring them up to date with what the current scenario is between regulations and changes in density as an example of what's impacting. The commission was not appointed in time to meet the statute, so we asked for a change that.
I know there were some senators that voiced interest in serving on that commission, and so it's probably not too late for them.
Right, because it hasn't been appointed yet, therefore the legislation.